What's up YouTube, how you doing? This is Mr. Tybox123, and in this video we're going to be doing a little comparison and also a benchmark comparison between the S2 and the S3. So basically guys, this is my last day with the Galaxy S2. It's been a trusty phone of mine now for over a year, and I've really enjoyed using the S2, but today it's been sold, so it's time to move it on. Now, I've obviously got the S3 now, so what I figured we'd do is just have a little look around some of the hardware aspects of the phone, have a look at the screen, and then run a couple of benchmarks and just see how much faster this new S3 is over the previous S2. So first of all, let's just look at the size comparison and see what the difference is. So if I just line these up as much as possible, you can see the S3 is a fair bit larger than last year's S2. If you put them together, you can see in terms of the length especially, it's a good kind of centimetre longer than last year's S2, and to the side probably about half a centimetre wider. If we actually look at the width of the two, you can see they're pretty much similar. You can't really tell much between them, but with the white back of the S3 and this white background, it kind of makes it look quite a bit skinnier than it actually is. So maybe not the best background to have used, but there we go, that's what we had. Anyway guys, let's now have a look at the screens of these two and see if we can tell if there's any difference really between the two. Let's just get a bit of a close-up here between these two. As you can see on the icons, they're fairly similar really in terms of the actual quality of the display, just on the normal day-to-day basis with these kind of screens. But when you do actually pull up an image, for example, you really can tell that the new display of the S3 is actually considerably better than last year's S2. Now, let's actually have a look around the hardware itself. I've got to say I much preferred last year's S2's home button as to this new skinny home button that we've got now. It's much more difficult to press than this kind of larger one that we had on the S2. In terms of the volume up down buttons on the S3, you can see it here, on the S2 here. I've got to say that the improvement on the S3 in terms of buttons like this is definitely a major bonus. They're a lot more improved than the kind of soft sloppy ones that we had on last year's S2. Now in terms of the power button, pretty much the same thing again. Definitely a lot more feedback, feels a lot more solid, the button on the S3. Now we've got the cameras. In fact, last year's camera on the S2 was actually a 2 megapixel camera, and this one I believe is a 1.3 megapixel camera. But I've got to say, the front facing camera on the S3 is absolutely fantastic. Far better quality than it was on the S2. And then obviously on the back we've got that 8 megapixel camera, and again they've definitely improved the camera over and above the S2 on the new S3. One thing that has definitely gone downhill is the quality of the microphone when you're actually recording with these two devices. The S3's microphone when you're doing vlogs and videos is absolutely awful. It's the worst thing about the phone altogether, whereas the one on the S2 was actually very good. But anyway guys, let's have a look at the benchmark itself and just see how these two phones compare in terms of performance. So let's run up Quadrant. I prefer Quadrant over Antutu. So let's just run this up and run a full benchmark, leave that running and see how that actually turns out. So here we go guys, let's have a look at the actual score. And as you can see, obviously the S3 has completely annihilated it as we expected, but let's have a look at some of the detail there. So the S3 comes in with a total score of 5,302, and the S2 comes in with 3,691. The CPU is at about 6,000 on the S2, about 12,000 on the S3. Memory is actually pretty much the same, 4,000 on the S2 and 4,250 on the S3. 2D score on the S3 is 1000 and it's 500 on the S2. And then we've got a 3D score, which are pretty much the same again. So the 3D score on the S3 is 2115 and the S2 is 2086. So even though this phone is, you know, over a year old now, you can see how much of a good performing phone this actually was when it came about, because it's still, in terms of pretty much everything, on a par with the S3. It's literally only the fact that this has got the new quad core CPU that actually makes it beat the old S2. But in terms of actual real life performance, let's just have a little look around maybe the browser. Let's just open up the internet. Where are we? There. And then open it up also on this device. And let's just go to a fairly complex website on both of these and just see what they're like for panning around. I usually use Wall Street Journal because it's just got so much going on. So there we go. Now I didn't start them at the same time, but definitely the S3 was quite a bit quicker there on actually fully loading the page. Now let's just have a look at the panning and scaling, moving around. Very, very, very fluid and fast on the S3. Let's have a look at the S2. Let's just keep that still. You can see there's a lot more of a lag on the S2 than there is on the S3. The S3 is pretty much instant, whereas the S2, you do get that kind of laggy delay that comes afterwards. So real life performance would be, you know, slightly different between the two. I've got to say that the job they've done with the S3 in terms of the fluidity of the operating system and the smoothness is absolutely fantastic. They really have kind of pushed the boundaries there in terms of the TouchWiz. Anyway guys, hope this was useful. I'm going to be saying bye-bye now to my S2. I'm going to be with the S3 permanently. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. See ya.